Hey everyone, thanks for having me. My name is Vojtěch, and I'll be speaking about what's coming up to Expo and React Native. You can find me on the socials, mostly Twitter and GitHub as @Novák. And I'm a software engineer at Expo. I work on the Expo SDK. And firstly, let me please get a quick show of hands of who among you knows Expo? All right, that's almost everyone, I guess. It really looked like 95% or maybe even more. Who among you has used Expo in the last year or so? All right, amazing. So I guess I can probably skip the Expo introduction part. I'm just going to say, for those who don't know, Expo is like a framework for building apps on top of React Native, but I guess you all already know that. I want to first take a step back and actually appreciate that React Native has been around for more than 10 years now. It was first introduced at React.js Conf in 2015, and what an amazing library. It's been around for 10 years, and it's still going strong, and it's powering some of the most popular apps on the app stores today. So great job. And also, let's show some numbers. So these are the npm downloads for Expo and React Native. React Native is around 3 million downloads per week these days, and Expo is accounting for, or Expo has almost half of those downloads. So you could kind of derive that probably half of the React Native projects are using Expo. And if you were to add also React and React DOM to this graph, you would see even way higher numbers, which tells me that there's still a lot of talent and a lot of people who are able to be productive with Expo and React Native. So, or actually both, people who would be able to be productive across platforms with React and JavaScript. And I think that's that's important for setting up us to staying successful going forward. So what I'm going to be speaking about, I want to talk about increasing development velocity, especially making those slow things faster, especially those things which are slow. I'll be talking about alignment between web and native. The third point, which I labeled as staying current or staying on top of things so that React Native stays successful. And lastly, I want to quickly say a few words about AI. So firstly, about the velocity. My favorite thing of getting stuff done faster is to not do it at all. And so the first point is exactly about that. And I want to mention pre-building native code for getting built faster. So right now, these days, if you open up a React Native project in Xcode or Android Studio and you hit the build button, you'll be building a bunch of native code. And the code that I'm building and you're building, everybody's building partially the same code on their laptops. And all this building is kind of wasteful because technically speaking, many of it could be just done once. You could pre-build it, and then everybody else could just consume that and not waste their, computing resources. And at Expo, we're actually just recently, we merged to the main branch, a PR which adds pre-building for the Expo SDK packages on Android. So in Expo SDK, as you know, there's a bunch of Expo modules, and it will be possible to consume them as pre-built artifacts. And inside of Expo, inside of the Expo repository, there is a internal app that we use for development. We call it Bare Expo. It has all these modules in there, so it's pretty large. And there we have seen an improvement of around 40% on the build time. And but pre-building is not something that will be specific to Expo or Android. So we're also kind of collaborating with Meta and experimenting on whether this pre-building could be also applied for iOS inside of React Native Core, and that would also just benefit everybody. And lastly, you could if you are a library author, you could also ship pre-builds of your library. Now, if you are a EAS build user, so EAS is our cloud-based service for building. Actually, just like 2 weeks ago or so, we have shipped M4 workers or workers which are based on the M4 chip from Apple. So we have deployed those, and we have seen also 45 to 50% faster builds. And this is, like you actually don't need to do anything about it. It's just going to be there. And these days, the iOS builds are sometimes even faster than the Android builds, which wasn't the case previously. This one tiny command which I mentioned, again, falls into the category of not doing the work that you don't need to do. And so if you're building a Expo app and you're using a development build, there's this thing called Expo fingerprint, which kind of identifies gives you the fingerprint, for lack of a better word, of the development build. And so if you're building, or if you're trying to build a dev client locally, chances are that there is a build already available in EAS, which has the same Expo fingerprint. And if there is a build with the same fingerprint, you don't need to build it because somebody has already done it. And in that case, you can just download it from the server. So this is just like one handy command, which I wanted to mention. And I also want to talk about more stable APIs, and this is more specific to the React Native core. If you look at the release notes from the past several versions, you will find here and there some commits that are, marked, or they have a little description that says like stable API, and it doesn't really tell you much more than that. But the important message, or the important part, is that the React Native API is like huge. And so the effort there is to like make it smaller, and that way control it better and make it more stable in the end. And this is going to be, affecting in a good way everybody who consumes it, because with the more stable API, we can move forward faster and not break things. And this is kind of incremental, so it's an ongoing effort. All right, on to the next topic. It's about alignment between native and web, and with the kind of the holy grail, achieving the holy grail, if you will, of shipping like more universal native apps. Wow. And I just picked a few points which are happening across the landscape. And the first one is CSS animations, which are in Reanimated version 4. So Reanimated 4 is now shipping a syntax for animations, which is kind of taken from the web. And so if you come as a web developer, you don't kind of need to think too hard, or you shouldn't be required to think too hard about what is the syntax that I should be using here. I should be able to just use the knowledge that I have and hopefully be productive with it. Also, if you look at the past few releases of React Native, there's a few styling props which are kind of being added here and there, which again are contributing to having those APIs aligned better and better. But finally, if you want to build something on top of it, you're probably using some of these libraries which are fairly popular these days, and they're kind of competing, I would say, but that's probably a good thing that you're coming from a certain background, a certain experience, and you can kind of pick and choose what you're comfortable with. So, Native Wind, maybe Tamagui, Unistyles, and I guess most recent probably is React Strict DOM from Meta. And finally, it wouldn't be complete without mentioning EA's hosting and Expo router. So, Expo has, like, historically is coming from like mostly mobile app development, but really to achieve this goal of universal native apps, we want to have an ecosystem that works across platforms. So EA's hosting, also recently available, allows you to deploy web apps API routes, and all of it like kind of comes together in one place, and you should be hopefully able to build your app inside of Expo regardless of what platform you're targeting. Yeah, and I'm sure there's more. You can feel free to reach out after. So what I call the staying current is, React Native and Expo, we're building on top of the web, we're building on top of Android, we're building on top of iOS. There's just all of these ecosystems which, they keep evolving. The world has not stopped spinning. Like everything is just happening across so many places, and we need to stay on top of it, which is sometimes extremely difficult. And these days, if you're building a app specifically, maybe for iOS or Android, you would be using Swift UI, and you would be using Jetpack Compose, and React Native needs to have some sort of a answer for these new approaches and new tools. And I want to mention Expo UI package. It's also, you can see it inside of the repository on the main branch, and also there's documentation, although in the docs you would need to go to the next version of the documentation, which is not yet released, but you will find the documentation for that. And so with Expo UI, we are shipping UI components, which I guess every app out there needs, like lists, some menus and buttons, sliders, pickers, all that. And we were building it on top of Swift UI and Jetpack Compose. I need to mention that this is, again, experimental. It's work in progress. There's going to be breakages, but I think it's important to mention that somebody out there is looking into this and making sure that React Native doesn't fall behind. Another thing is edge-to-edge on Android. So let's say you download SDK 53, which is probably coming later this month or next. It's going to be targeting SDK 35 on Android. And on Android, with this SDK 35, automatically, I believe by default, there's edge-to-edge is enabled, which means you'll be able to draw underneath the whole screen, and the system bars are kind of not there anymore. And also, this is something that, maybe it's not like super exciting, but somebody needs to think about it. Somebody needs to do the work. And so there is the React Native edge-to-edge library that we have collaborated on to make this happen. And of course, I need to mention new architecture. It's been around, or the topic has been around for a while. And I really think now is the time. If you have not migrated, please do it. And if you're having issues, try to please narrow the issue down. Try to come up with minimal reproducible examples and open issues in the React Native core repository. And issues which do have clear reproduction steps are definitely prioritized, and they will be fixed. And at some point soon, React Native or the new architecture is going to be enabled by default in projects unless you opt out. And I think one more thing that I wanted to mention here is that, as I mentioned at first, React Native has been around for 10 years. It's kind of starting the second decade, and new or bigger companies, bigger enterprises, which would not risk using React Native before. Now they see it's more stable, it's more mature. Now they're going into it, they're using it, and they usually come with an existing project that they want to integrate React Native with, and so there is effort to make these things easier. For example, on iOS in React Native 79, the RCT app delegate is going to be deprecated, and it's going to be replaced with a React Native factory, which is just like a more neat and less invasive way to integrate React Native into Brownfield. Maybe Michal can, he probably knows more about it, because I think it was mostly a a call stack effort. And something that's kind of maybe a topic that's closer to my heart, or that which I'm interested in is, and just outside of like React Native, but just the topic of offline first or local first. I think this is going to be a topic that is getting more and more interest. And also at Expo, we want to be kind of keeping an eye on it. And so, for example, I think yesterday, Churso database, which is a provider for SQLite databases, announced that beta availability of their offline sync, and Expo SQLite is compatible with that. And there's more examples that I could give. And finally, the last part about AI. I guess this is a big topic of today. There are all these AI generators or assisted development tools like Replit, Bolt, Work, and more and more and more. It seems like a new one is popping out every other week. And so, what is our take on that? And so Expo needs to be, if you're using Expo and LLMs and AI, you need to be productive with Expo. And if you go to docs.expo.dev/LLMs, you'll see that we're kind of supporting this LLMs.txt initiative, which basically means that we're exposing very simple, non-styled markdown files that IDEs like Cursor and all these AI tools, they can consume that, and that way they will understand better what kind of offering Expo has and how to use Expo. And there's an article at expo.dev/AI/strategy written by our CTO, which kind of expands on this a little more in detail. But what I extracted out of it is that Expo's role is to provide a strong foundation that all these other AI tools can build on top of. So we want to provide the infrastructure for you to build, to test, to deploy, regardless if it's native or web. And hopefully we'll keep our jobs while this is happening. And hopefully, I wanted to invite you to App.js, which is the biggest React Native and Expo focus conference. It's taking place in Krakow in less than 2 months, and it's definitely a good place to be. And from Prague, it's just like a couple hours on a train. It's a pretty comfy ride. So if you're looking to network and learn even more about what's coming up to Expo than what I said today, this is definitely the place to be. And hopefully, well, I will not see you there because I'm getting married, but hopefully you will maybe see each other there. Yeah, and finally, I'll be happy if you come and talk to me and tell me, what's working for you with Expo and what's not working. So I'll speak to you later. Thanks.